everyone, my name is Chloe and today I'm here to do my year in review, kind of stats and just a brief overview of each month as far as what was my favorite and least favorite of the month. So later in the month I'm going to be having like my 2020 favorites and my 2020 least favorites and a lot of different videos coming out, but I thought this would be a good time to do just like overall stats and then a quick glimpse into each month. So in 2020 I read a total of 354 books, which is mind boggles me. Like, I don't know how that happened. I think COVID. One silver lining is less to do, so more reading. I don't know, but 354 books. So the star breakdown, according to Goodreads, so this is just doing 2, 3, 4, 5 stars. It's not doing half stars or anything like that, but I have not tracked on a spreadsheet or anything until now 2021. I'm trying it, but so I was reliant on Goodreads stats. So let's just get into the basics that they give me. There are 24 2 stars, 139 3 stars, 165 4 stars, and 23 5 stars, as well as 3 that I DNF'd to the point that like I don't feel like I could give them a rating or anything like that. So the average is 3.53, which I think is pretty much what I would guess. Like a 3.5 star is like, that was better than average. It's nothing like exceptional. I won't remember it forever, but 3.5 stars, better than average. I would recommend it. And so, I mean, that's pretty much what I would expect. As far as genre goes, like I said, since I didn't track, I can't tell like specifically, but one thing I did want to look at is fiction versus nonfiction, because I really want to make sure that I'm reading like at least 1 or 2 nonfiction per month. And so out of the 326 were fiction and 28 were nonfiction. So that means I did just over 2 per month. I know like nonfiction November, I went a little hard. So there's definitely some months where I didn't do 2, but other months where I did more. So I feel pretty good about that. And then as far as my best and worst month, September was my worst month at 16 books and November was my best month at 38 books. And so I would not have guessed that. Like, I don't really know what happened in September. I had a baby in June, so I would kind of think maybe June would be the worst, but no, it wasn't that. It was September for whatever reason. And then November, holiday season, I think there were a lot of readathons and things going on, and that motivates me like no other. So I think readathons are probably what saved me in November, but those are my best and worst months. So I'm just going to go through each month and tell you what my favorite book was and what my least favorite book was. So as always, I vlog every single thing always, and I try to put a picture of the book in the thumbnail in every single vlog. So of course, you'll know what month I'm talking about, so you can go back through the vlogs if you really want to see more of my thoughts, but let's just get into it. So in January, I read 27 books, and my favorite was Love and Other Words by Christina Lauren, and this is one of my like all-time favorites, and I feel like I cannot believe that it was just this year that I read it for the first time, because I feel like that book's been like a part of me forever, but it was just in January. So that one was my favorite, and then my least favorite is No, I Don't Want to Join a Book Club, A Diary of the 60th Year by Virginia Ironside. I just really did not care for the book. It's just a diary of like a woman's random musings, and I didn't like it at all. I didn't relate to the lady. I couldn't like follow her train of thought, and so I didn't really enjoy that one. And then in February, I read 21 books, and my favorite was Eleanor and Gray by Brittany C. Cherry. And this is another one, like with Love and Other Words. Those are 2 of my like all-time favorite books, and I cannot believe that it's just been this year, well, 2020, that I read them. Like, I feel like they are a part of me, and I need to reread them again. And like, I feel like I just found a place and a home when I read these books. I love that book. And so that one was by far my favorite. And then my least favorite was Little Lady, Big Apple by Hester Brown. Then in March, I read 33 books. And my favorite was In 5 Years by Rebecca Searle. Now, I know this one is a little bit unpopular, but a lot of people didn't love the main character, I think, and I kind of related to her. And then also, it is definitely not a romance. I think that was a big reason a lot of people were turned off by it, because it's definitely more women's fiction than romance. It's definitely more of a friendship story than a romantic story. So if you go in knowing that, which I didn't, but I prefer women's fiction, so for me it was like a pleasant surprise. So In 5 Years, I loved it, would highly recommend it. My least favorite for that month was The Starter Wife, and this one I just, again, did not care for at all. In April, I read 34 books, and my favorite was Love and Gelato by Jenna Evans Welch. So this is the first in a trilogy as of now, I think. And it was so good. It's a YA book, but she travels to Florence, Italy, and that is somewhere I have been multiple times, and I loved it. I love like single parent romance or single parent stories, and this one is her going to like meet her estranged father, and I really, really, really enjoyed it. My least favorite was a book called Mom Enough, and this was a collection of like blog posts and things, and it is a mothering collection, all with a Christian lens. And so I feel like that can be done really well, but it's a very fine line between being helpful and inspirational and being preachy and judgmental, and this one was very, very preachy and judgmental, and I did not like it. In May, I read 35 books, and my favorite was The Girl He Used to Know by Tracy Garvis Graves. And Tracy Garvis Graves is one of my favorite authors. I love her, but I loved the relationship between our main two characters. So it is a second chance romance. They had a romance at one point. Our female character is somewhere on the autism spectrum, and our male character is just a wonderful cinnamon roll, sweet, patient, kind, perfect man. Like, I loved him. And Buddy read this with Krista from Books and Jams, and I think the word that she kept using that is so perfect is gentle. Like, the story is just very gentle, and not in the sense that it's slow or that it's like lyrical or like kind of, I mean, those are not my type of books, but just the relationship between them is so compassionate and kind and gentle, because she has a lot of anxiety, of course, that comes with her autism, and like especially around social situations and things like that. And we know that she is the reason that the relationship ended in the first place, and yet he comes back to her with nothing but like kindness and empathy and understanding, and just like, I just loved it. There's a big tone twist in the end, and I personally did not mind it at all. I do think that it was a little bit out of character for our main female character to act the way she did in the very end, but I feel like the twist at the end really brought an emotional punch, and that was definitely the intention of it. And so if you feel like maybe it was emotionally manipulative, I could maybe see that, but I really, 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 really enjoyed the book. My least favorite from May was Olive Kittredge by Elizabeth Strout, and this one, it's just the genre type thing that I don't like. It's a bunch of kind of short stories all amalgamated together, and I don't like that, so it's no surprise that I was not a huge fan of that one. Then in June, I read Behind the Bars by and then in June, I read 29 books, and my favorite was Behind the Bars by Brittany C. Cherry. And you guys, that's the second Brittany C. Cherry book that has made it on this list. I love it so much. I love it so much. And so my daughter was born June 12th, and she was like, we had to induce, like, so I was at the OB office all the time. And I remember I had an appointment, and I was so late because I just could not stop reading this book. And something happens halfway through that is an emotional, like, I had to just sit there and like be in my feelings for a minute. And you guys know I'm not a very emotional reader. Like, I don't really cry in books, but that one got me good. And it was so, 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 so good. Like, I cannot say enough. If you like second chance romance, specifically with like childhood sweethearts, this book, the first half is kind of YA, and it tells the story of these two people meeting and like becoming friends and really like forming a bond when they're young. And then the second half is them, after a lot of life has happened, coming back together. And it is so good. You guys, I loved it. My least favorite in June was All the Missing Girls by Megan Miranda. And this one has a very unique style in that it's told backwards. So it is a thriller, and it's told like, you get kind of like present day, and then it goes backwards, and it says like 15 days ago, 14 days ago, 13 days ago, and like kind of does it backwards. And like, I just could not wrap my mind around the timeline of things and like what I knew and what I didn't know, and kind of how things worked out. And so, I don't even know if I'm explaining that right. Like, I felt more like disoriented than even engaged in the story, and I just didn't care for that writing style. In July, I read 25 books, and my favorite was Evie Drake Starts Over by Linda Holmes. So this one is about a woman, and I can't remember if she's like married or her husband dies. I think her husband dies, and she's like not actually sad about it because she was not really in the relationship very well. And then I think that's the case for her, but for some reason her and her marriage has split up. And then a baseball player who is no longer able to play because he gets a case of the yips, he moves into like her guest house or something, and it's their romance. And I love sports romances, and I felt like the sports was done really well. And I also love baseball romances in the spring and summer, so I feel like the timing was really great on this one, but I just really enjoyed it. My least favorite was Twice in a Blue Moon by Christina Lauren, and truthfully, I don't even remember that many details about it. I went on a Christina Lauren binge, and I found so many of theirs that I really, really enjoyed, and then Twice in a Blue Moon was just a struggle to get through. I didn't care for it at all. In August, I read 24 books, and my favorite is shockingly a poetry collection. So I don't read like any poetry really at all, and yet this one was one that I found like in the middle of the night because it was August, so my daughter was like 2 months old, and so she was up all the time, and it was, I think, on NetGalley. It had both the physical, or both the ebook and the audiobook, and I did both. And it is a poetry collection just about, dear girl, like, you are wonderful, you are heard, you are valued, you are so much, and very much like inspiring girl power, like empowering, wonderful. It was just so good, and like, it's something that I want to listen to over and over and over and over, and I want my girls to listen to over and over and over and over, just stating your worth no matter what has happened to you or who has hurt you. Your worth and your value is so much. And that is by Asia Bayrock, and I loved it and could not recommend it enough. And it was so like out of left field for me that it just took me off guard, and I loved it. My least favorite from August was Second Glance by Jodi Picoult. I'm normally a huge fan of Jodi Picoult, but this one was just so, like, had so much going on, and it just didn't make sense. It was hard to keep track of. I ended up DNFing it and then getting on like some sort of Spark Notes or something to see what it was all about. And like, I am so glad I didn't read it because her books are all pretty chunky, and like, it had some paranormal and stuff that just was like, this is not for me. Like, I just did not like it at all. Then in September, I read 16 books, and I couldn't pick just one favorite because these two, I loved both of them, but they are so different that I feel like I need to talk about both of them. So the first one is New Kid by Jerry Craft, and this is a graphic novel about a boy who is taken from like kind of an inner city school. He's a black boy taken from like an inner city school, and he's put in this like prestigious, mostly white school. And so it's him like trying to find his place because he then no longer fits in with like the black kids back home, but he does not fit in with the white, like, preppy kids at school. And so kind of figuring out where he is in the middle. I think he's actually a mixed race kid, and just figuring all that out. And it really, really brings to light like both outward racism and systemic racism in a way that I feel like would be a wonderful conversation starter for the middle grade population. And I feel like this book just really made it both obvious and like accessible for those of us who have not experienced that directly, like for us to be able to talk to our kids and empower our kids and make our kids true allies. I felt like it was just so good for that. And then the other book that I loved in that month was As Bright as Heaven by Susan Meisner. And this is a story about the Spanish flu and a family and how they make it through it. So loved both of those, but they are very, very different. My least favorite was Home for the Holidays by Sarah Richardson. And this is a Christmas book. And it really like tried to be both a light and sweet Christmas book as well as like a hard-hitting kind of women's fiction contemporary. And I feel like the balance of those two was really off. And also, this deals with infertility, and it was done in a way that, as somebody who struggles with fertility, it was very offensive to me. And I just like thought it was not good. It was harmful. I don't think there were sensitivity readers or like a lot of research put into it. And so it just was something that I was like yucked out reading. And so I don't recommend it, and I did not like it. In October, I read 31 books, and my favorite, I'm going to say, is just Colleen Hoover. I read All Your Perfects and Verity that month, and I love them both. I've read more Colleen Hoover this year, too, that I feel like are favorites as well, but All Your Perfects is another story about fertility, but it is done so well, and it's another kind of not second chance because they've been together the whole time, but you get to see this couple when they meet in like college, and then now many years later they've been married for a while, they're struggling with fertility, like kind of you get to feel all the feelings of them falling in love, and then you also see them now when like things have just crumbled and things are really 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 hard, and being able to feel both the excitement and the butterflies and the falling in love feelings as well as like the heartbreak and angst that come with a struggling marriage, like I felt both of those so strongly, and I thought the fertility was done great, and I really enjoyed that book. And Verity as well. I loved Verity. It was our October book club pick for the Book Sisters, and I loved it. I thought it was really good. This one is about a woman who is asked to come finish the series of books that this woman named Verity has written, because Verity was in an accident and she's now in a vegetative state. And so this woman goes to the house and Verity's there, and it's almost like she's like watching, like it's very creepy, like almost like a gothic kind of romance, but it's not a romance, definitely not a romance. And I think that's a lot of people's complaints again, especially because this was, I think, in the Goodreads list of romance. And it's not a romance. It is a domestic thriller kind of thing, but there is a relationship between the author and the woman's husband, and so there is like a romance, but this in and of itself is not a romance. There's also a big twist in the end that I really liked. It kind of made the ending a little more ambiguous, and I really enjoyed it. I know others did not, but I loved it. My least favorite was Big Boned by Meg Cabot, and this is number 3 in the Heather Wells mystery series. And I have read through the first 4 books in the series this year, and number 1 was okay. It's like a mixture of cozy mystery, chick lit, kind of fun stuff, and then number 2 was more of the same. Number 3 was more of the same, and it just felt like very redundant and very like, okay, we've got to add something else to this, and I just didn't like it. In November, I read 38 books, and again, I'm picking 2 because I can't not. My favorite was The Mistletoe Connection by Chelsea Pennington, and this one was another one that was just kind of a like out of left field. The author actually reached out to me, and she is a debut author, and she wrote The Mistletoe Connection about all these people stuck in an airport on Christmas Eve, and all of their stories interweave in such a brilliant way, and it was so cute, so entertaining, so festive. I loved it. And then the other book that I really enjoyed was Sunrise on Half Moon Bay by Robin Carr. This is a standalone about 2 sisters, one of which is like 20 years older, I think, than the other. And so there's a huge age gap. And one of them, like the older one, has gone on and like made a life for herself. The younger one was stuck taking care of their mother who had a like terminal disease. And so her whole career has been taking care of her mother. Like her older sister financially made it possible that she could be the caregiver for her mother, because otherwise they would have to hire full-time care. And now the mother has passed, and the older sister's marriage is in trouble. The younger sister has no idea like what to do with her life, because her entire life has been taking care of her mother, and now her mother's gone. And so it's them both like figuring out their lives individually, but also finding out how they can work together as sisters. And like the sisterly love was good. And my sister and I are 9 years apart, and so it's not quite that same gap, but just the things they talked about like different stages in life not being very close because you're just in such different stages of life. And then now that we're adults and everything, like just coming together and being like, hey, we need each other. We're sisters. At the end of the day, like none of that matters. And so I really loved both of those books. My least favorite was The Debutante Divorcee by Plum Sykes, and that book I just was not good. And then last in December, I again sort of have 2. Sisters by Raina Telgemeier was my favorite. I read 33 books in December, and Sisters by Raina Telgemeier is a middle grade-ish graphic novel about Raina herself and her little sister. They took a road trip across country with their mom, and the 2 of them, her and her sister, don't get along very great. They're young. I mean, it's very like sibling squabbles that happen. but then they find out like there's more going on between mom and dad. And so again, the sisters kind of bond together. If you guys can see a theme, I love sister stories. And so that one I really enjoyed. And then the other was The Forever Girl by Jill Shalvis. And I just finished this on December 31st. And I feel like I've talked about it everywhere. So long story short, it's about a main character who is a very hardened individual. She has a lot of walls up. She was in the foster system and she was a foster child. She was one of 3 that was a part of this family. And one of the biological children has died in like when they were kids. And so that split up the family. And then the siblings kind of kept in touch, but then something happens that they stop. And so now after 3 years, they're all coming back together for one of their weddings. And she has to confront like a lot of the walls that she's put up and a lot of the barriers she has put up. There's also a second chance romance with one of the other foster siblings. Like they're siblings, but they all like came into the family later in life. So it's more like a found family kind of situation. And I really, really, really enjoyed that one too. So my least favorite for December was Jewel by Brett Lott. And I actually DNF'd this one pretty early because it's just a very, very old Southern book that I feel like the derogatory language was more than I could stomach. So that is everything. Those are my short and sweet stats for 2020, as well as my best and worst of the year. Like I said, stay tuned. I am doing a whole best of 2020 and a whole least favorite of 2020. And you guys, the reason I don't do recommendations or best of or whatever is because the lists are so long. I cannot leave things out. And so my best of list is a lot. Like it's like 20 fiction plus 5. Not, I mean, it's a lot. It's a lot. So stay tuned for that. And my least favorites as well. Like I just am going to do all the videos because I don't want to leave anything out. I want to tell you guys everything. So tell me some of your favorites from the year. Tell me some of your stats if you've got them. Like I said, I did not keep a spreadsheet at all in 2020. So my stats are pretty slim pickings and just what I could get from Goodreads. But 2021 will be better. So that is it. I will talk to you in the next one.